Growing up, we all heard the wise words, stand up straight or don't slouch, but we didn't always listen. Well, now you're hearing it again, and this time we hope you hear the important message that goes along with it. Do you know if you're standing with appropriate posture to give your pelvic floor optimal support? Just like poor posture can lead to neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain, and other problems, it can also put our pelvic floor in a very vulnerable position. Let's take a look at how appropriate posture can have such a profound effect on our pelvic floor function. We'll begin with a brief overview of appropriate posture from the ground up. Our feet should be shoulder width apart with equal weight on each leg. We should have a slight bend in our knees. We should hold neutral spine of our pelvis, and our hands should be open to simply roll our shoulders back without effort. Our chin should be tucked so we're standing tall. This positioning should produce ears over shoulders, over hips, over ankles. Now that sounds easy enough, but now let me show you some very common postural mistakes. Many of us stand with our knees locked back. Let's look at what that does to our pelvis, our shoulders, and our head. With our knees locked back, we accommodate at either our hips by thrusting them forward, or at our low back by increasing our curve. Whether it's our hips or our low back that accommodate, the next area is affected the same, and that's our upper back and shoulders are rounded forward, and where our shoulders go, our head will follow. So it's important to stand in what we call a soft knee position. This is a position where our knees are not locked, but also not in a deep knee bend. To get there, take your knees back to a locked position, then simply unlock them so they're loose and they can move back and forth. In this soft knee position, we're better able to hold our pelvis in neutral spine. Let's take a closer look at how we find our neutral spine position. First, let's take our pelvis through its full range of motion. Place your hands on your hip bones so you can rock your pelvis like a cradle. First, if you give pressure with your hands, rotating your pelvis in a counterclockwise position, you'll feel your back flatten out and your buns tuck under. This is a posterior pelvic tilt. Now use your hands to give pressure rotating your pelvis in a clockwise position. You'll feel your low back arch pushing your belly out. This is called an anterior pelvic tilt. You have now experienced the extremes of your pelvic range of motion. Continue to rock your pelvis to get a good feel for the motion you have, because every individual is different. As we work to find our neutral spine, we know we need to maintain the natural curve of our low back. So a posterior pelvic tilt or a flat back posture just won't work. Instead, let's take our pelvis back into an anterior pelvic tilt, rotating our hip bones clockwise. Go to the limit of your motion, but keep in mind we don't want to be at this extreme. So rock your pelvis back ever so slightly. Now pull your abdominals in tight and you've found your neutral spine. If I was to push on your shoulders, compressing your spine when you are here, you are solid as a rock and in perfect balance. These are subtle movements of our spine, and it's not easy to control without visual feedback. So I strongly recommend the use of a mirror as you initially find your neutral spine. The visual feedback you will get from a side view will be very helpful until you develop a feel and awareness of where your neutral spine positioning is. Now, what does good posture have to do with pelvic floor weakness? As you will see in this drawing, the position of your pelvis can affect the position of your bowel, bladder, and uterus. If we are a neutral spine, our uterus and bladder sit to the front of our pelvis where there is more bony support. If we stand with our hips thrust forward and our buns tucked under, our pelvis is rotated counterclockwise. In this position, we have disengaged our abdominal muscles and our hips are thrust forward, relying now on the tension of our ligaments and bones versus the tension of our muscles. Unfortunately, as we relax the muscles of our back and stomach that help hold neutral spine, we also effectively relax our pelvic floor muscles. Standing in this posterior pelvic tilt or buns tucked under position not only disengages our pelvic floor muscles, but it also changes the position of our bladder and uterus, moving them back to a position with less support from bony structures. This combination of increased pressure on our pelvic floor and the relaxation of our pelvic floor muscles increases the likelihood of incontinence or prolapse. So in order to give our pelvic floor the most support we can, we have to be aware of our posture from the ground up. Postural awareness is important not only for our pelvic floor health, but it also enhances our breathing. It improves the function of our muscles and the health of our bones. So let's look at our optimal posture one more time. Again, place your feet shoulder width apart with equal weight on each leg. You should hold a slight bend in your knees and be holding neutral spine with your pelvis. Then if you simply open those hands up, this rolls your shoulders back. Stand tall so your ears are over shoulders, over hips, over ankles. And that's optimal posture.